shining light on the dirty secrets of the dark web. If you have not yet been a cybercrime victim, you may be feeling pretty smug. Unlike those millions of victims reported every year, you must be doing all the right things to keep your accounts secure. Well, not if you listen to Ted Ross. He'll tell you that your accounts have almost certainly been breached and your details are already out on the dark web with billions of other secrets waiting to be weaponized, and they might remain dormant for many years before anything nasty happens. Ted Ross is CEO and founder of SpyCloud. He knows his way around the dark web. In his own words, what we do at SpyCloud is focus on interacting with criminals and bringing in data that they're stealing hours before breaching an organization. We take that data, we parse it, make it machine-friendly, and then we pass it down to our customers so that if they have a password that's exposed or their employees have a password that's exposed, they can remediate that password, remove it from the rotation, change the password before a criminal can take action. This is a very important and disturbing topic. To find out more, we asked analyst Vikram Phatak, founder and board member of NSS Labs, to chair a discussion with Ted Ross and two other cybercrime specialists. In order of speaking, Thomas Edwards is a special agent in charge of United States Secret Service, San Francisco, and Jan Guldentops has had many years' experience as a white hat hacker, breaking into systems not to rob them, but to expose their vulnerability. First, we'll hear from Vic Phatak, speaking to Ted Ross, then Thomas Edwards.
How many companies actually know what's out there on the dark web? How much of their information is out there?
Yeah. So when we go into a new opportunity and they haven't heard of us before, and we show them their information, they're almost always surprised. So I would think that a shockingly low number would realize how big this problem is and that their credentials are actually out there.
So from obviously Secret Service, you're dealing with this all the time, right? Obviously, Ted's saying, okay, he goes in, people don't know, but you go to a larger company, is that still true? Or I'm assuming the threshold for you to get involved is fairly high.
Yeah, we'll get a call from a victim company and we'll start looking at what the actual loss is. There are certain prosecutorial guidelines as far as the amount of loss per judicial district in the U.S. Typically, it's anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 for a prosecution, but it doesn't prevent us from doing the investigation. So we'll work with the company to try to remediate the loss, patch up the networks, and stop the bleeding.
So I do want to add one more thing, Vic, and that is the larger the company, they know that the credentials are out there, but they've underestimated the power of that data until they see it.
Okay, that makes sense. I know, but until I saw it, big light bulbs went off.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, Jen. And the problem is, you can monetize credit card data, you can monetize wire transfers, but to Ted's point, you don't know the value of those credentials on the dark web and what it's going to cost the company to remediate the losses, whether it's through replacing their servers, replacing their infrastructure. That could be in the tens of millions of dollars. That's never accounted for when you're looking at prosecution, but it's an actual cost to the business.
So what's the end game? Pretend I'm a bad guy for a second, and I steal a bunch of credentials, right? Is it to try and get the money transferred from a wire transfer from a title company kind of scenario, or is it more, is that always the end game, or is there something else people are after?
Jan Guldentops answers Vic's question.
Depends on who's doing it, right? A good hacker hides himself and stays around for years at a time. We had a breach at Belgacom, for instance. They were in there for 5 years before they were detected.
But if the primary motive is financial, right? How are they making their money?
Well, it depends. It really depends. There's so many ways of doing this. I had a case in a certain Antwerp sector that transfers a lot of small stones and is more afraid from the tax collector than from criminals mainly. And there they basically stole, they basically intercepted an illegal transport of blood diamonds. That's how they got away with it. And they had it out of a mail account. They hacked a mail account. It's so many different ways of cashing in. We always see the simple ones with credit card data. But there are so many creative ways of doing this. It's incredible.
Okay.
Yeah, I do think, though, that it's very common for them to put the money into an account where they can take that money and move it to many other banks quickly so that they can basically launder the money. Move it around faster than you know, the investigators can keep up. I mean, there's always this simple way of monetizing, and that's to get somebody to buy you gift cards.
Okay.
But hopefully the people at Best Buy now and Apple will realize, why are you buying 1,000 gift cards? And look at the email and stop them from doing that. I mean, the big losses are typically wire transfers out.
Let's follow the money.
Which is,
And to Ted's point, the organizations have become so sophisticated through the use of encrypted messenger apps such as Telegram, where they can coordinate their attacks or their cash outs very quickly around the globe. So you can have a crew in Asia, a crew in Europe, a crew in South America, a crew in North America. And when you want to cash out on any one of these schemes, whether it's credit card or bank wire, they can just send that message out to the network, and it's instantaneous. The coordination is fantastic at the criminal level to take advantage of these vulnerabilities that are exploited.
Speed.
So once you know your information's on the dark web, which I'm assuming everybody's is at this point, right? So, okay, proactively in the future get a password manager, but is there anything you can do to clean it up, like cleaning up a credit report?
Really?
yeah, how easy is it to change your social security number?
Not really.
It's very difficult, right?
Right.
And so I think that we live in a world where you just have to know your data's out there, and freeze your credit reports. And when somebody tries to open up a new account, hopefully they'll have to actually call you to get approval to unfreeze it. I mean, it all goes back to zero trust. Your data is definitely out there. I know my Social Security and my date of birth were leaked as part of Equifax because 2 months later, new accounts were set up with my Social Security number for the first time ever in 50 years. First time ever after Equifax. So there's a 7-year fraud alert on my Social Security number now.
Yeah, I had somebody in Detroit take out a $28,000 loan from one of those short-term lender things. All of a sudden, they start giving me a call. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, I mean, we just talked about Social Security, but what other information is out there? I mean, I hear medical records are hot. Why would somebody want your medical records?
Yeah, no, we're seeing more and more as they move industries and monetize this information. Private health information can be used for a lot of different reasons, especially as governments provide more and more health care. You can use somebody else's information to get that surgery or that procedure. But it also, you can think about it, if you get the information of a politician or a high-profile individual, and you have that data, you can use it to exploit that person and extort information. So it becomes really dangerous. Your private health data can be a treasure trove for organized crime.
So we were talking about privacy earlier and how in Europe there's a different perspective on privacy.
Yeah, definitely.
Compared to the U.S., I've got an 8-year-old son. He has no expectation of privacy. But it sounds like if the bad guys already have our data, then we're not going to have privacy anyway, right? I mean, we can't trust that it's not going to be used against us in some way. Or am I misreading that?
And the thing is, I mean, it's not because you have a stringent privacy law in Europe that there's no data being leaked, right? I mean, not much has changed in GDPR. Everybody's scared for the fines, but the big breaches are still coming along, right? So it's going to keep on happening. for a long time, and there is no solution for that. Once your data is out there, it's game over. Once you're blackmailable, right, it's game over.
So maybe
there's no way back.
What I'm getting at is it used to be in the U.S. years and years ago that if you were gay or if you were something like that and you didn't come out, they could be used to blackmail you, right? Which is why everybody now, if they're gay, they come out. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But 1950s in the U.S. that wasn't the case, right? It sounds like if there's other things like that, that you have some medical procedure or something, you might as well let your colleagues know and folks know, because otherwise it could be used against you.
So I look at it a little bit differently. You say it's game over, and I say it's just the way things are.
Yeah,
and we have to live in that world now, and just you have to accept it.
But the trick is, I mean, as a human right, you have the right to keep certain things private, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that is one of the
Criminals don't care about that. But criminals don't care about that, and they've already set the stage. So now we live in this world, and we just have to kind of deal with the world we live in. I think trying to undo that is just unrealistic at this point.
No, I agree with that. It's going to be very difficult, but we need to find a way to keep our privacy, because it's a basic human right.
Yeah, I agree with the spirit behind GDPR, by the way, too.
Yeah, I mean, you should not know everything about me before you step onto a panel, because you can do a query somewhere. Right? And we have a generation coming along now who have the idea that they're never going to have privacy. Everything's going to be public. That's a bit a sad way of living, isn't it? If you meet somebody and you can look him up before you walk in.
Yeah, I think it's a different way. I think it's a different way of living, and they're doing it willingly. They go to Facebook and they put everything everything they do. They take pictures of the food they eat.
Yeah.
They take pictures of the shoes they're wearing.
Yeah.
As they're walking down the street, right? I mean, they're putting everything on Facebook. They're already making it available.
So
this kind of goes back to New York University had a discussion with a bunch of lawyers that how do we tackle the deep fake problem, right? If somebody can create a video and you can't tell that it's a fake, and they can blackmail you with that video, what does the industry do about it? Do we watermark? Do we go to every single video camera in the world and make it watermark, pictures and video, which is completely unrealistic? And discussion went quickly down the path to, well, if every video is a fake, you stop trusting the videos. And it's the world you live in. It just changes.
Everything's fiction.
Everything's fiction.
that's not good.
Yeah, but it's basically what he's saying. Everything is fiction. You approach everything as fictional.
So how does how do we? Well, that's a whole other question. How do we function? Let me switch gears here for a second. So we've heard about some new technologies like 5G, and obviously the Internet of Things is now happening. What's going to happen? You can't change the password in some of these things, right? I mean, if there's a meter to your electric meter hooked up to your house that's connected to some smart grid, right? Isn't that stuff hard-coded? All right. Getting some looks here.
Yeah, these are wicked problems, right?
So what should we be doing with that?
Well, I think in general you're seeing a change in the industry to put security first into products. Before there was a rush to market to put things out there to see if they succeeded. You're starting to see a changing of the tide to because of all the security threats and vulnerabilities that are out there that the consumer is well aware of, that the companies are starting to build in security into these home products.
So how does a consumer, how does a company know which ones have that and which ones don't?
That's problem one. You can only test security in a negative way. So if somebody says they're secure.
I don't think they can hear you.
Sorry. You can only test security in a negative way. So that's problem number one. Number two is I think the industry is still not really mature on security. If you see a credit card company promoting PCI DSS and not even complying themselves in a basic way, it's do as I say, don't do as I do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a flip side to this, and that is, as we migrate everything to the cloud, your IoT devices are most likely being controlled by some company that has a cloud presence. And we had this conversation yesterday. One of the things that we can do to tackle this problem, because there's this, the skill shortage and security, the turnover, the fact that we can't keep up with low-hanging fruit, we can't patch all of our servers. I mean, we can just go down the list of all the things we can't do. As soon as you move all that to the cloud, it becomes the responsibility of the cloud provider. Those guys are capable, and they do have the staff, and they do have the money to invest to secure those things. So there is some advantage for at least that movement. And if your IoT devices are not on a separate VLAN, it's completely shut off from the internet. Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, Jan. Devices are always going to be hackable. There's always going to be human error in how people set up their networks and how they set up their home devices or work devices. But slowly, we're raising the bar. The barrier to entry for organized crime is getting slightly higher than it was 5 or even 3 years ago. And that is a success for the private sector, like Ted's company, and law enforcement. As long as we can keep more people out of thinking about being cyber criminals because it's just getting too hard, we're winning a little bit of the fight. Maybe not the whole fight. We're winning a battle, maybe not the war, but the barriers to entry are important.
One last point, and it's basically, I'm a bit more pessimistic. I've been doing these kind of panels for 23 years now, right? And I got out a presentation of 23 years ago, which made an overview of what we should fix. And I used it in a new presentation, and I said, what have we fixed already? And we had theory for everything, but we're still using user IDs and passwords. We're still not sending signed emails, which if you would have told me that in 1996, that we wouldn't be doing that now, I would thought you were mad, but we're still not doing it. We're still not going to the essentials, and that's why I am pessimistic. And we made progress, especially in law enforcement. We're doing quite a lot of things. We're tracking money better, which is basically the biggest clue. I think we're not there yet.
It seems like I don't see a lot of new things. I see a lot of products, but they tend to all be the same recycling over and over again.
In response, we have a comment from freelance journalist Anthony Caruana from Australia.
I think what Jan just said is really, really important to understand, but why can't we change? Like, we all know that we're not changing. We know passwords are crap, and we've lived with them for forever. We know all this stuff is no good. Everyone in this room knows it. I think every journalist in here has written it about 50 million times. What is it that stops the world from actually moving on? And what can we do to change that?
So somebody from Cisco, John Stewart, actually gave a really good presentation recently. And he looked back at the last 10 years and made the point that, again, everything has changed. Back in 1996, if somebody would have asked you if you'd be using the cloud, you'd probably laugh at them. It's a buzzword.
We wouldn't know.
Now everybody's on the cloud.
We wouldn't know what it was, right?
But so everything has changed, but username and passwords. And part of the reason for that is there are so many new ways of digitalizing, I'm messing that word up, your products. The proliferation of applications and all these different things that you need to log into. The easiest way to log in is with the username and password. And so they're not going to invent some new technology to release a new app. The apps are just everywhere at this point, and they've taken advantage of the old authentication methodologies. But I do think we're on the verge of seeing some change. There's a number of vendors that are out there that are trying to stop, change this to make passwordless technology. In 10 years, hopefully, this problem will no longer exist.
There's a lot more that could be said, but the first important message is simply be aware of the dark web's existence and to think twice before fully trusting any online interaction. We thank our distinguished panelists and chairman for leading a very interesting discussion, and also thank you for listening to this NetEvents podcast. A full transcript is available from www.netevents.org.